Now, the fourth issue that we talked to your Pastor Chaitanya and Janet was his personal habits. Now, most of you might know or might not know, your Pastor Chaitanya has a habit of smoking. Now, I know about it even before coming to Capstone Church. I got to know this through my previous church pastor. He told me about his smoking because he never liked me working with Chaitanya. I denied and I told him that it might be true or it might not be true, and I don't believe it unless I see it with my own eyes. And even if he does it, I am no one to judge because that is between him and God. Now, when I came to Capstone, there were Sundays. All the Sundays before the devotion or before the service starts, I myself got the smell of smoking from his mouth. And that never bothered me at all because, as I mentioned, it is between him and God. All we can say is tell him not to do it. Now, I never saw him smoking though, but one of my best friend's cousin, he saw him smoking. He caught him red-handed twice, and then he came to me and said he wanted to talk to the leadership team and tell about this. And I told him this. See, I don't know what is the reason he smoked. Probably he had some struggles or whatever it is. I mean, let's not take it to leadership team. I am a part of the leadership team, so leave it between him and God. And I never brought it to the leadership team. And also that, as I mentioned, it never bothered me. But now, when we mentioned, but now I want to address this point because the volunteers in the church started observing it. There are believers in the church who saw him smoking and they stopped coming to this church. At least I know a couple of the families at least. Now, when the volunteers also got to know about this, I felt it is time. It has to be addressed. Now, the thing here is, I really don't know how to address this because it's very personal to ask him, and I did not have the guts to ask that question. But my wife Priya asked Pastor Chaitanya that, do you smoke? Okay, I want to tell you this. Now, those three issues when we're talking, your Pastor Chaitanya and Janet were very active, and at times they were also kind of angry. But when we asked this question, both of them became pale. They turned pale. And Pastor Chaitanya said, no. And Priya asked, did you overcome it? He said, yes. Then I said, Anna, well, if you overcome, it is well and good. But I just want to let you know that I'm no one to question you. None of us can question you this because it is between you and God. We are no one to judge. And if you overcome, well and good. But I think volunteers have observed. There are volunteers who follow him to find out where he goes. Now, for most of the church members, you've seen a pastor beginning of the service to the end of the service. But as volunteers, we see him, from beginning of the day to the end of the day. Now, here is the thing. Your pastor drops his family in the parking. When he was in Tabernacle, he dropped them in the campus, and he goes back. He comes back after 15 minutes. He drops them in Lemon Tree, and he comes back after 15 minutes. Now, and also after the service is done, after he greets and wishes people, he again vanishes for 15-20 minutes, and he comes back. Now, there are volunteers who've been observing this, and they are always had a question: where is Pastor going? And one of the volunteers, I don't want to mention his name, he did follow to find out where he goes and what he does. And one of the volunteers' friend, he had a doubt that your Pastor Chaitanya has a habit of smoking because his behavior after he comes back from those breaks is different. And it is. He mentioned that that kind of attitude happens only when a person smokes. Now, when I got to know this, I told Pastor Chaitanya that Honestly, I don't know what is the truth, but people in the volunteers, people in the church are getting to know about this, which is not good for the church. If it is, if they get to know about it, they're gonna, I'm not sure how many people will be hurt. And one of the worship team member was hurt, and he stopped coming to church because of all the reasons that I mentioned, including his smoking. And I told him again, I want to mention this point very clearly to everybody here, that we as a family told him that we are no one to judge you. It is between you and God. I also mentioned, do not ever stand on the stage and confess that you had a habit of smoking. Your reconciliation has to be between you and God in a room, not publicly. And those are the 4 issues that we talked about. The first issue that I mentioned was about his elections. The second issue was about his staff. The third issue was about the volunteers. And the fourth issue was about his smoking. Because we raised all these 4 issues, they were insecure. And they decided to remove us from church. I will talk to you about what happened after the meeting in the upcoming videos.